The amazing levitating turtle. There are no others. Just me. The question is, can it get any windier? Oh, no, that's not the question. The question is, can it get any larger? How about a 125-inch wheelbase, which is right around, well, that's like Chevy Tahoe territory. Slightly shorter, I think, than like a BMW 7 Series. But the Genesis G90 is got so much of its own personality that you can't even, I wouldn't even compare it to much of anything else in the class just because it's so itself. From its twin turbo V6, supercharged electrically, I should say, supercharged engine, to everything else about it, to the cool little Bang & Olufsen sound system. This is such an interesting car. And most importantly, it has, of course, the Mood Curator and the sounds of nature. I mean, this car is designed from the get-go to do everything you could possibly think of to make you comfortable and happy as you're driving along. And this is an interesting vehicle in that it's not really, I could see a family having this car, sure, absolutely, but at the same time, this car is built to be a limousine for someone else. This is a car that is happiest, I think, when it has a driver, and the executive or whoever, or the rock star, or the executive rock star, can ride in the back and just incredible comfort, get a massage by the upholstery, do all that kind of thing, and be kind of divorced from the driving experience. It's just a very comfortable way to get from A to B, whatever B is, your gig or your boardroom meeting or whatever. But from a driving standpoint, though, it's a lot of fun. I wouldn't mind chauffeuring people around in this. Being a Genesis, it also has a very unique style to it. And as you can see, it's wide. It's wide, and I'm going through a series of wide vehicles right now. But again, everything about this car is kind of unique, right down to the styling. And I really like this styling personally. I think it's kind of cool. And it's also very distinctive, and that's, when you get to this class of vehicle, that's often very, very important to owners, is to have something that's very distinctive that nobody else really has. And this is certainly that kind of car. And as we come around our 125-inch wheelbase vehicle, as you can see, it's got that real nice, roomy rear cabin area. You can always tell because the roof line doesn't really start dropping back until well behind the passengers. And it does that in order to keep massive headroom to go along with the massive leg room in the rear seat. And as we continue around, look at that beautiful tail end on that thing. It's very smoothly sculpted. You got your beautiful dual exhaust ports, which are, of course, ideally suited for your twin turbo engine. You know, everything's in twos there. And overall, there's no mistaking this vehicle, period. I mean, when I say unique, I mean it. As we do battle with the sun, I can't even see what I'm looking at here. Oh, here we are. But a beautiful car. And everything about it is about attention to detail, and also just coming up with new and interesting and innovative things, some of which I don't like as much as you might think. I'll show you. And this is a part and parcel with modern vehicles, especially the more technically advanced, the more interface problems I have with it, because I think they do a lot of, they're heading in the direction of everything's just done by voice command or touchscreen. And a lot of times it's not the most efficient way to do things, in my opinion. But anyway, without further ado, we got to take a peek under the engine, because every aspect of this all-wheel drivetrain is interesting and unique and smooth and very powerful. And in the case of this particular model, it's supercharged as well. Let's take a look, shall we? And you may wonder, what type of engine is this? Well, it looks very much like a V6 3.5 liter turbo GDI and electric super. Why do I keep saying electronic? Electric supercharger. But this engine also is very interesting. It also has port fuel injection. It has both. And as I've mentioned before, it's becoming more common on a lot of vehicles because there are some downsides to direct fuel injection, including carbon buildup over time in the intake ports around the valves and everything else. And a way of dealing with that is having the occasional squirt of fuel through a port fuel injection system, which actually helps to clean that carbon away. So, and it's also, there's certain times and certain loads on the engine at certain RPMs and that kind of thing, where it's actually a little bit more efficient to have port fuel injection instead of gasoline direct injection, which is what your GDI stands for, by the way. So anyway, can you see everything that's there? Probably not, because it's kind of packed in here pretty good. But we have our it is longitudinally mounted, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, our V6 engine. And on the exhaust side of each of these, we have a turbocharger. And we have also air cleaners on both sides here. Everything is fed separately so that everything has a dedicated air source, fuel source, Tyrannosaurus, all those things, to develop a whopping 409 horsepower at 5,800 RPM. And your torque value, I believe, is 405 at around 1,600 RPMs, and I'll put it at the bottom of the screen. But you got plenty of low-end grunt on this engine, and 3.6 liters is fairly small, but considering the power output and the nice wide spread of power, it's a real nice power plant for this. Now this right in here is part of our electric supercharging system, which means that some superchargers, like a Roots type of supercharger, is powered off the crankshaft with a belt. But this is powered by an electric motor. And that again, it's almost like when they put a hybrid system in with an electric motor to help boost low-end torque and immediate takeoff from a standstill kind of thing, to smooth out that lower part of the, because usually at very, very low RPMs is where your engines are not putting out as much power, obviously, but they're also not quite as smooth and tractable as they'd like it to be. So there's various tricks they can use. Hybridization is one, and this is a different way of doing it. This is a real interesting aspect of this engine, which I really find very, very pleasing, if I may say so. I'd give you a shot down there of where your, well, here's your air intakes that go into it, and your turbocharger is right down in there. There's one on each side, as I said. And here, this particular coolant right here, I believe is for the engine, and primarily, and this over here is for your intercooler system. Or it could be the other way around. I'm not sure exactly. But you do have a huge intercooler in the front of this, down here in this radiator array down here. And again, when the air is compressed using the turbochargers, it heats up quite a bit. So then it goes, the compressed air then goes through a system of cooling through your intercooler to cool it back down to maximize efficiency and power. So that's the way that is. Now, what are these things here? These are support struts that are just aid in overall rigidity of the chassis. Now, whenever I see these things, I always have the same thing, and they're very common on all kinds of cars, different kinds of struts up front to aid rigidity. And I always think, well, if it was engineered properly to begin with, you would not need these supplemental things. But the fact of the matter is, it's all part of keeping the weight down and keeping the structural strength where it needs to be. I mean, there could be all kinds of different functions for these things, including accident protection if you should run into anything with your G90, which don't do that. It's too beautiful a car to do that to. But anyway, it also aids just general ride quality and handling. It's just to make the front end stiffer. And of course you have a front drivetrain and a back drivetrain. Now, to the best of my knowledge, I believe we're looking at an 8-speed transmission. I can't remember right off the bat, and I have my stuff inside the car, and I'm too lazy to go get it, and that and the fact that if I open the door, it'll fly off because of the wind, just so you know. One thing we do have that's very normal and not all that unusual is the oil viscosity, which is 0W30, which is pretty common on a lot of different vehicles. But I love the fact that they tell you, and you actually have a dipstick right there instead of all this electronic crap that I don't trust. So there, with all the technology and everything else with your twin turbochargers and your supercharger, you have something nice and familiar like a dipstick to tell you how much oil you have in your vehicle. It's something to be happy with, because if you're the chauffeur, you know, you want these things. You want it to easily be able to access everything to keep this car healthy so you can drive around your hedge fund guy or girl or whatever. I think I'd rather have the rock star compared to the hedge fund person as a person I'm driving around. Or maybe even a gifted surgeon, who knows? But there you go. The hood, as big as it is fairly light, so I'm thinking we got some aluminum at work there. But there we are. Beneath that hood is a whole lot of power. And again, I mentioned before, we do have all-wheel drive with this car, which is absolutely appropriate, both for handling and for some all-weather performance. And we have a multi-chambered air suspension. And that's one of my favorite things about it, because out here where some of our driveways and some of our byways and some of our roads in general kind of could benefit from having some work done to them, but they don't have that work done to them, so they're primitive. And as a result, you need a car that has a little bit of ground clearance so you don't constantly hit rocks and things like that, knock oil pans and other important parts of your vehicle off and into the road. So this has a button you press and it'll raise the ride height to where you see it right now. This is the higher ride height, and give you a little bit more ground clearance. And I really appreciate that. It's like they are actually thinking when they designed this car. Let's move on, shall we? Oh my goodness gosh. What do we have here? We have 245/40 R21 tires, which means we have 21-inch wheels. And I call this the honeycomb effect in this wheel design. But look at the size of your rotors, huge rotors, which happen to be, I believe they are ventilated. I can't tell for sure, because there's different ways of ventilating rotors on high performance vehicles, but they're big, they're huge, they're brakes, because this car weighs thousands of pounds. I think it's 5,100, something like that. I'll run it on the bottom of the screen, the exact curb weight of this vehicle. But it comes with these lovely Michelin tires, and to the best of my knowledge, we'll find out in just a minute, we don't have a spare tire on this. I think we have a flat repair kit, which I'm not thrilled about, but what are you going to do? There's a reason why there's no spare, and I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you right now as we go to this beautiful fastback rear end. It's an excuse for me to get out of this horrible wind that's freezing me. Okay, here we have, well, we got, this doesn't belong here. Here's our trunk. Now, I actually saw somebody review of this, and I normally don't ever look at anybody's reviews, but I did see something, and they said it had the trunk was not very big. The trunk is plenty big enough. It's shallow though, that's the only thing. It's kind of shallow, but it's a very roomy trunk, and very, very well finished, like you would expect from a $100,000 luxury car. Then what do we have here? What do we have here? a lithium-ion battery. Now, I believe that battery right there is primarily for your supercharger system. And that means you do not have a spare, which means instead you have a flat repair kit. That's just the way it is, because the area where you might have a spare is taken up by that lithium-ion battery back here. So it's not a true hybrid now, but what do we have if we go in? Let's go in. As you can see, there is our ski-through, nice big ski-through so you can put your skis in there. And since you have all-wheel drive, there's nothing to stop you from going up to your chalet. And one of the things I really like about this car is the fact that I mentioned before that it's shallow, but it's actually, it runs fore and aft quite deep. So there's plenty of room for quite a bit of luggage, no matter what those other people say. But naturally it has a power lift gate on there, which is beautiful, and even has that little bit of a tail end wing on there. This aerodynamic structure, it's very, very subtle, but there it is. Again, really, really nice styling on this vehicle. And more than anything else, is there a family resemblance between other Genesis products? Yes, there absolutely is. This is something that the parent company, Hyundai, has been so good at, is coming up with absolutely beautiful cars, in my opinion. And they all have some family resemblance, but they're not all exactly the same. I do love that tail end right there. As you can see, tall at the top before we make our bend down south to give you plenty of rear seat room. And then you still have your nice fastback on there. So, a beautiful car for beautiful people who require occasionally a bit of mood curation. And we'll get into that very shortly. And so the galaxies were formed. And shortly thereafter, there was Genesis. Yes, the G90. A car that would be the leader of all cars. Well, no, actually, that's a bit of an exaggeration. But you are experiencing vitality. Part of the Mood Curator, or also known as the Mood Curator, that is part of it's not even really an extension of Genesis's Sounds of Nature. It's a whole different thing. But depending on what you want to do, right now we have activated the light and music portion of it, but you can also get a massage, and it'll close the shades in the back, and it'll do anything you want. Now, normally you think I'm just talking about a car here. You can see that there's a little bit of red, attractive lighting down there. But it's not just a car, it's an environment in which you go from place to place. It's kind of like a spaceship, or maybe even a time machine. It's like no other that you may have ever dreamed of. Anyway, let's get back to the nuts and bolts, shall we? Here's our instrument cluster. And it changes very slightly depending on what our drive mode is. Right now we are in the standard drive mode, which is Eco, I believe. And then this is Sport, which naturally goes red. And let's go to Comfort. Actually, we were at Comfort. And then we went to Sport. And then there's Eco, which is telling Eco. And then there's one of my favorites, which if you hold this down, we go to My Drive Mode. And My Drive Mode allows you to select a number of different things. Shall we go have a look? But if we do that, we have to interrupt the beauty that is vitality. Yeah, I think we probably should. What we'll do here is we'll go over, here we go. Well, you can project your phone, by the way, onto this screen if you want to, provided that you plug it in. But while I had this car, very interesting, there was an over-the-air update that came along, and it's now capable of using wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto both in a wireless sense. And it wasn't able to do that until I got the over-the-air update, I guess. So here's our various setups. Oh, this is nice. Let's look at this. Three-dimensional setup. And then we can see inside. See? That's where we are now. See? Ooh, that's a different setup there. And now we can go to the vehicle display or vehicle settings. And here we go with, ooh, there we go. Drive mode and custom, my drive mode. And this allows you to do, wait a second. Oh, this is just selecting it. Wait a minute. Huh. Well, somewhere in here. Oh, what can we do with the instrument cluster? Well, first of all, we have a heads-up display you can activate. So if we enable it, see it says check blind spots. There's your heads-up display. You can see it there. And you can also display adjustment control. That's a whole different thing. Oh, here we go, yeah. We can do the height. We can raise it up, raise it down, and rotate it. Oh, let's rotate. Whee! Very slight on the rotation department. But anyway, like so many other things on this vehicle, you can adjust just about everything. Here we go. The powertrain. If you set your own drive mode here, you get powertrain. You can put it on comfort or sport or eco. We have it on comfort now. Steering is set on sport. Suspension is set on comfort. You can also set it on sport. And then all-wheel drive is set on comfort, and you can also set it on eco, comfort, or sport. Because there's your little indicator of what's going on underneath the skin of the outside, and that is the actual chassis parts. As you can see, if this is accurate, it's a very conventional all-wheel drive system. In other words, it runs off, a drive shaft runs off the transmission, the 8-speed transmission, and it then determines what the traction situation is like based largely on sensors. Well, actually, it's completely based on sensors that are normally used for anti-lock brakes and traction control. And it will also determine whether or not you require more additional traction from the rear. Now, or is it the other way around? Now, with a car like this, considering it's a luxury sport vehicle, it's probably biased, the drivetrain is probably biased slightly towards the rear instead of front drive, because rear-wheel drive just handles better in sporting conditions. And I would imagine when you select the sport mode, which I can do just like this here, I'll put it on sport, it's probably biasing even further the rear drive system, because it handles in a sportier manner if it does that. So there you go. But as you can see, our main setup here, we'll leave it on sport for now, and you get your red indicators, which are not even needles at all. This is all virtual. Nothing is real anymore. And we also have this right here, which widgets are not available in the current. If you're in sport mode, you get no widgets. Well, okay. Let's go down to. Let's go down here. Why don't we go to? I'd say comfort. Now let's see if we have any widgets available. Apparently not. Yeah. I don't understand what widgets are. I knew earlier. I've already forgotten because I've had this car for a week, and it does its own thing because, well, that's what it does. Now here we have this thumb operator over here will give you various indicators of what's going on. This is your adaptive cruise control and your lane mitigation stuff, and that is your actual navigation. At the moment, there's no road that this car is on, so that's what it's telling you. So the actual amount of display that's being shown here is kind of rudimentary. I could not, during my tenure with this vehicle, actually find. That's interesting. It just suddenly stopped. Isn't that interesting? We'll go back to map then. Huh. You know, this thing has done a number of little, I think there's some glitchiness in the software on this system because it's done a few things. Let's go over to medium here. And we'll go on to Sounds of Nature. And Lively for us, which is always a favorite. And then we'll take this back over to, there we go. There's been a few glitches like that where it's gone for a while and then just stopped. So I don't know what's up with that. But I have not been able to find during my tenure with this vehicle the trip odometer. And I looked in the owner's manual that is in the car. I looked in the print owner's manual that is also in the car. I have not been able to locate anything that even mentions the trip odometer, so that's really strange. It's in here somewhere, but I mean, if I have to take that long to look for it, and I do this stuff for a living, and I've been doing it for a living for 20 years, it's not what I would describe as intuitive. It's something completely different. What happens if I press this? Maybe that'll do it. Set your destination and navigation. Okay, that's what that's for. There's nothing here. I mean, I've literally, in order to calculate the gas mileage on this, and it's telling me I'm getting 23.3 overall, which is pretty good. That's a fair amount of highway driving. I just had to write down the odometer reading, which is to the lower right, and I'll just have to, when we fill up, see how many gallons it took to get from A to B using mathematics. But I don't know where it's at, if it's on here. It's not any place that's easy to find, and that's getting more and more typical. What else? Now, before we'll start with the steering wheel, because we do have all our cruise control stuff over here. This is what I just hit to try to tell me to select a navigational destination, and it'll tell me what's going on here. This is what I was doing in order to change what we're actually seeing in our center screen. If I hold it down, what it'll do? Nothing. And then this right here is our lane centering, also known as lane tracing, which is part of your adaptive cruise control. This is your following distance on your adaptive cruise control. This is your plus and minus miles per hour, and this is your on-off switch with your adaptive cruise. We go over to the right. Here's our volume control for our stereo. Here's this thing that doesn't want to do anything right now, except start and stop the, it tends to do, when you're in the regular radio mode, it will tell you what exactly is going on as far as, now why did the lights go off? Did you see that? The lights just went off. Why is it doing that? I can never tell with this thing. Well, anyway. Oh, we don't want that. Oh, we don't want that. We don't want that. We're back to Sounds of Nature. This star, which you can't see now for reasons that are beyond me, is a programmable control that you can actually set up whatever particular parameter you want that to operate. We also have our paddle shifters up here for our 8-speed transmission. And to go into manual mode, you just hit your paddle shifters and it will select the gear for you. The transmission on this is very, very smooth, as one would expect. Up here you got your trunk release, power trunk release, of course. This is your dimming and enhancing your center console here. Your center instrument cluster. It's interesting. This has its own separate control for adjusting the height. God, I tell you, this car's got me so vexed, it's ridiculous. the intensity of your center screen, which is of course in the landscape format. And it's a very, very good sharp screen, and the navigational part of it is also very, very good. It seems to work great. I mean, they're all pretty much the same. The onboard systems that you get now are all pretty much the same in that they're very good now. They're much better than they used to be in so many ways, as far as if you use voice recognition to set a destination. They're real good at it now. And it seems to be, I don't know if this is Google fed, but I believe it is. I'll have to check that. But it's a good system, it works fine. If you drop below that, we'll have, this is our extremely comprehensive climate control right here. And you have left and right zones that you can set for you or your passenger. Your rear seat passengers have their own doodads, which I will show you in just a minute. Now this is a fun one. This is an actual sense that it can send a wafting aerosol into the air somehow in order to enhance your mood. They're all about mood curating on this thing. You also have a heated steering, of course, and oh, the air conditioner's not turned on. There, it wasn't set on automatic. I wonder how long that's been going on. But also you have your defrosters front and rear right here, recirculation, then the usual stuff, and it's in a fairly easy to access location right there in the climate control area where it should be. This upper range right here will give you all the stuff you need for instant access to your map, to your navigation, to your media, like that, and to our rainy day. Let's access this here. We'll go back to that. And I thought there was a different picture that went with that, but I guess not. Vexing, it's vexing me. Here's how you can make your cup holders disappear if you so desire, and then you can open it right back up like that. But the fun part is making it disappear, because it's almost like it's electric, but it's not. Now we're getting into the funkadelic. In that we have our, this is our transmission shifting knob, but it's unreasonably, in my view, close and similar in diameter to this particular control knob for your center display. Is it easy to mistake the two? Yes. You'll get used to it. If you own the car, you'll get used to it. But I still don't understand why Lexus, oops, I accidentally mentioned the competition. I've not really understood why Genesis continues to do this, because that is a little bit confusing in my opinion. But just to put it into gears, you just turn the knob. We're now in reverse, and you have to, thank you, you have to put your foot on the pedal to do that, and then drive, and then neutral, right there, and then park. You press the button right like that. And like I said, this is completely removed from that. This is just to control the center screen. But this has a little bit different feel to it, but not different enough in my opinion, and the diameter is way, way too similar. Up here is your radio controls, which are very familiar for anybody who has driven something that has one of these roller, your volume and everything, volume and on-off is controlled by this roller switch. You push up and down on it. What does this do? Nothing. This doesn't seem to do anything. And you can actually tune with this. Now, why they don't put just a knob up in here, I don't know. I find this, like I said, it's more inconvenient. You can find it by feel, but you kind of have to look down there to do it. It's almost like they're determined to do that. Now, here's a real fun button. Watch what happens when I press it. I'm going to put my finger on here and watch this. Watch this. Nothing happened, right? It's because what that is primarily for is if your door is shut like this, open like this, you press this button right here, and power door closing. Yep, you heard that right. It powers your door shut. If you're incapable for some reason of doing it your own self, have at it. Incidentally, I didn't mention this before, but we also have a dedicated control down here for both heating and cooling your front seats, which is one of the more easy to access systems on here. At least you don't have to go through sub-menus on the center screen in order to find stuff, so that's good. Here's your cameras, and as you can see, we have a broad array of cameras available to you. And there's our simulated, and can we just spin it around? We sure can. As you can see, there's an enormous vehicle parked next to it. It's massive. And there's a dog. Look at there. There's my dog right there. He's sitting out there waiting for me to come in now. Come inside because it's starting to get dark, and you know, he's a dog. But there's our front and back. And this is a very convenient one right here, this side to side. As far as when you're parking or doing anything where there's a tight squeeze, the cameras are very, very good to have. So anyway, that's all that. And both the passenger and the driver get that power door feature. As do your rear passengers. They have it as well. And here we have our wonderful, fairly shallow, but yet still wonderful center console with 2 USB-C ports and a 12-volt port. But where do I put my phone? I need to charge my phone. Where does it go? Well, right here. It slides right in like that, and there it is. It's charging. Very good system, very easy to use, and it also secures your phone so it doesn't go flying all around should you start getting all crazy with your driving habits. And I know how you people are. You do go from time to time a bit crazy with your driving habits. You know what I want to do? I want to go back to vitality. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do up there and up there, Mood Curator, and I just want to make sure this does not. That's turned off. Good, because I need the light back there. But now we're going for vitality again. And occasionally you will see the stars come flying through there. Still one of my favorites. This is the same as it was last year. They haven't dramatically altered it, which is fine with me because I think it's great fun. Now, once again, to note that you do not have a conventional, right down here is an emergency way of opening the door should you lose all your electrical power. But this is how you actually open the door. You push that button and it'll creep open for you. Then you just give it a little push like that. Wild, huh? So now then we shall go to the back seat. Now as you can tell, very, very large back seat. Hello, puppy dog. He's gone all crazy. He's gone all virtually viral. He's viral. Okay. Now here we have almost 90 degrees and very, very generous barking. Stop the barking. And I'm gonna sit right down here. And someone left a bunch of crap in here. Oh, that would have been me. I'll put that up there. Now here, let's open up our, there we are. Very nice. Now, as you can see, this is limousine room right here. You can really stretch out. I have the seat fairly far back. You got your really your really nice vanity mirrors. That's you. See, you're a boxy thing. And we also have our own part of our panorama mirror. Can we do anything with that back here? Well, by the way, here's our door opening and shutting right here that I was telling you about. We'll open that, and then I'll press the button, and it'll shut itself. How about that? You also have, look at all the adjustments you have on the seat here. You got a little bit of recline. You got your incredibly well padded. This is, like I say, this vehicle is designed to chauffeur people around. You have a lot of stretch out room on this car. And what else do we have here? We'll turn this on, and I don't see anything on the screen. How strange is that? This car is doing a lot of weird things to me. Let's radio. I'll turn it on. Media. There's media. Now I don't know why I'm not saying anything here. Huh. But there you go. There's nothing there. I could have sworn there was a huge display earlier. There we go. Swipe the screen to unlock it. There we go. Now look at this. Can you see all the elaborate things you can do here? You have your you have vibration. We have the window shade here, which we can do nothing with. I think it's because the mood enhancer's got it shut off. But you have open and close. Look at that. I did that through the magic of electronics. So you can completely get some privacy back here from the outside world. And you also look at this incredible array of stuff you have here. You have 2 different presets here. For if a regular executive rides back here, you can adjust that so that just like a front seat, so that it will assume the posture that the person that normally rides there likes. This here is our heat. And I don't really see cool. Is that cool? Or is that massage? Huh. Well, anyway, suffice it to say, there are 10 million different adjustments to these seats back here. Now it is, as you may have observed, this is strictly a 2+2 situation. You're not going to get more than 2 people back here, really, unless somebody's sitting on somebody's lap, which then you get to the whole being a CEO thing, and that's what's involved with being a CEO. You get to do whatever the hell you want to, apparently, including break the law if that's what you want to do. Now, apparently this this panorama up here is controlled. I don't see anything here. Oh no, that's the rear. Here we go. There we are. Look at there. We have our own little panorama universe there. And here we close it. There we go. So everything is largely controllable by your rear seat passengers, and they have their own really nice. Oh my God! Someone's been in here. We have your really nice little cubby here. I think you could put. This would be perfect for putting CDs or DVDs in. Unfortunately, there's nothing to play them on back here, but you can put them there if you want. And you have, as you can imagine, every kind of climate control imaginable, in addition to being able to run the stereo and your media. So it's an incredibly inviting environment in the rear seat of this car, and that nice long 125-inch wheelbase really comes in handy to delivering all this room. And so there you go, folks. This is an experience. This is not an interior. I've always really liked the G90 a lot because it's a very, very solid car. But boy, they do really load it up with everything you might possibly want. You can turn this off like that. There we are. And I would recommend it if you're a kind of person that's looking like at a BMW 7 Series or stretch Lexus LS Series, something like that. I would recommend this car a lot because, believe it or not, it's $101,000 as equipped, but that's still like about $25,000 cheaper than the BMW, and it's a real nice ride. I mean, the big question I have is, let's compare those 2 cars. The BMW 7 Series probably got more performance, of course, just because it's a BMW. But which one of the vehicles is going to, in the long run, be more reliable? That's a tough one, isn't it? Because BMWs are not famed for their long-term reliability, let's be honest. And Genesis is getting better. They've had some problems in the early years, but I think they're getting better all the time. So, and with that, with my Sounds of Nature playing, I think what I'll do is, do I have my own shade control over here? No, I still don't know exactly what in the world if we have it. Well, these aren't. I don't think you have your. I'm wiping. I'm trying to turn you on. That's a stereo. You saw me turn it on earlier. There we go. All right. Yeah, we do have cooling. We can cool. You sure can. There we go. You can cool it. So I'm going to have a little nice breeze going through my seats here, which you can now hear. And it's absolutely such a nice, comfortable place. I can take my shades, and I can close my shades here. There we go. Look at there. See? Everything is now nice and closed up, and I can listen to my sound of nature and hope that somebody will wake me up for breakfast in about 8 hours. Thank you, G90. I have enjoyed this experience. Welcome to the Mood Curator. Always a favorite feature of mine when one is driving the, what is this called? It's a G90. It's a Genesis G90. It's a Genesis G90 3.5T SC, which stands for supercharger. And here we go, driving along, trying to figure out how we got where we are. In this case, we're at Comfort on the Mood Curator.
Turn left onto Hartford Turnpike.
So isn't that annoying when they come in and they give you directions during your mood curation? I, for one, do not appreciate this. Do you feel comfort, friends? As I will show you in just a minute, you have all kinds of settings to adjust your curator. You can have it, I could literally having it massage me at this moment. This person's run off the road here.
On current road for about 8 miles.
Incidentally, the suspension has, near as I can tell, has lowered itself. Because I had it on a higher suspension setting, because you can raise on the multi-chambered air suspension to give you a little bit more ground clearance if you're in an unimproved road situation, which I was. I hope you enjoy the fact that I'm curating your mood. I have the power to do that with the Mood Curator. This one is called Vitality. Enjoy your vitality, shall you? Consider taking a break. Consider shutting up. Why don't you do that? That's something I have to turn off on every car I get in nowadays, because it's always thinking that I should take a break. What does that say? Does that say more about them or about me? Now the question is, this music we're listening to that is provided by the Mood Curator, my question is this particular music written for Hyundai, and do they own copyrights to it so you can play it? Because I don't think it's going to do anything. Well, if you're listening to it in this video right now and it just stopped all of a sudden, I don't know why. I guess I mentioned the word they don't like, copyright. Oh, no, it's coming back now. We're coming back. Oh, this is interesting. How do I do that thing that I want to do? Right there. That's what I want to do. There we go. Now I could go to autumn sentiments, and this should, in theory, override the. There we go. We have now overridden the Mood Curator, and we're going to sounds of nature. So you have all these options. You don't need like your satellite radio or your or anything like that. Now, right now, I'm driving in a situation where there are a lot of gusty winds, gusting up to about 30 miles an hour. Now, initially, I thought this was part of our autumn sentiments in the background, but it's actually the real wind doing real things. Now, this is a good place to test our steering to see how I can maintain the center of our lane, even though there's a lot of gusties and crosswinds. Wind is out of the northeast right now. Excuse me, northwest, as I left my domicile, and it's probably from the northwest here too. Or did I say northeast? Up, I hear someone walking in the lane. Now that's really good. It's getting blown around quite a bit because the winds are very, very, and it's maintaining its position in the center of the lane very nicely. Hyundai's always had a pretty good, done a pretty good job in that regard. They've done very well when it comes to basically the overall adaptive cruise control system works very well, but also their self-steering works pretty well. I'm going to disconnect it now. I think it has served me well. But the car, being such a big vehicle and having a 127-inch wheelbase, wow, that's like a Suburban or something. That's enormous. It's very stable, has a very stable track. It's also very aerodynamic, and all these things combine to make for a very stable ride. I've now activated my drive mode, which is, of course, there's actually 4 settings. You have comfort, and you have eco, and you have sport, and then you have my drive mode. And my drive mode allows for a little bit of customization, not a whole hell of a lot. But I've set it up so I have firm steering, but a smooth ride, and that kind of thing. Engine response, I don't think it changes all that much between the settings. It's a very strong engine. It's over 400 horsepower and over 400 pounds of feet in your torque department. So it's not just an insane rocket, but it's very quick. I mean, you got to remember, this is one of the things that's so interesting about this car to me, and not surprising in the least, is it's a heavy car. I mean, it weighs as much as an SUV, largely due to its size, but it's also very, very well built. I mean, you can't have this kind of quietness and this kind of solid feel to a vehicle if it's a lightweight, if it's made out of nothing but lightweight materials. There's some solid metal in this car in various places, and as a result you have a very solid feeling chassis that is well handled by the air suspension. Now there's 2 real different versions of this car. This one is got the electric supercharger on it, so that it has a much higher horsepower rating, but both vehicles come with the 3.6 liter dual turbocharged V6 engine. And there's a lot of other minor things that are different, including the fact that air suspension is standard on this vehicle and it's not on the other trim level. And the other trim level, I believe, has just your regular coil spring setup. But I bet it rides great. I bet it's wonderfully tuned and stuff. It just doesn't have quite the versatility. But what it does have that this vehicle doesn't have is the adaptive cruise control on that vehicle, on the lower trim line, if you will, has the ability to, using the front camera system, it is watching the road, and it can adjust the suspension in advance of you getting to like a huge series of bumps or something like that. If it sees that you're on smooth pavement and you're about to come up to lunar pavement, then you can shut up with that. See that it's always saying I need to take a break. I don't know what in the world their algorithm looks at that determines that, but their algorithm is not very accurate because I have no need for a brake. Thank you. But anyway, that cruise control system won't work with this system, and I'm not sure why exactly. Or it won't work. It's not available. At least it's not available on this car that I saw looking at the specs. And it's putting the brakes on by itself in this corner. Now, is it because of the tightness of the corner, or is it because I'm getting closer to this vehicle in front of me? We do not know for sure.
In a quarter-mile drive straight onto I-384 West.
Yeah, I know how to do that. And we're going to up
Drive straight onto
our speed.
I-384 West. Continue on
The sounds of
for
nature
about 11 miles.
would let you think that everywhere you go, there is an abundance of crickets. And you know what? They could be right. Did you know that anywhere you are on planet Earth, except underwater, except on when you're underwater, you have a spider within 5 feet of you? I read that somewhere. So what does that mean? Well, there must be a spider somewhere in this car, because it's still there. I will indicate to Waz that yes, the vehicle on the side of the shoulder is still there. But it's something important to remember, that them spiders are out there, and you have to get along with them. If they ever decide they want to take over the planet, they could do it probably in, I don't know, a couple of days. Because they're everywhere. They're everywhere. And they're geniuses. No living creature has the kind of engineering skill that spiders do. Man sure does it. Man can't do it on his own. Man actually has to use mathematics and other things and other tools in order to build stuff. Spider needs nothing. Spiders just build stuff. They weave together their webs, which are engineering marvels. They can handle wind like this crosswind I'm dealing with today, and still maintain their structure and still function to capture their prey, you see. Think about that sometime. Appreciate the spider. And yet, I don't think you can even buy a Fiat Spider anymore in the automotive realm. I'm not sure they're still around at the moment. They probably, well, in Italy, yes, but in the United States. And the Spider was usually used to denote a convertible or primarily a what's the word I'm with? Not convertible, because it was smaller cars. Mainly your two-door sport drop-top sport car. Boy, this wind is really interesting, and it's not having a big effect on this car at all. This car is doing a great job of just sloughing all that off and ignoring it. I admire that. Ride quality is good. It's not perfect. It's not the most. It's not flowing over all this like a magic carpet or anything. That's the thing about air suspensions, is they have their place, in my opinion. They're not a universal great thing to have, but they're good. I mean, there's a lot of value to them. And they're also introduced that bugaboo, which is complexity. And as opposed to having, if you just have a regular conventional suspension with coil springs and shocks that are calibrated at the factory to suit the ride qualities and handling desires that the engineers want in the vehicle, there's really not a whole lot, unless they are mechanically or physically bumped into or disturbed. They don't break. But air suspensions are complicated. Each corner has its own sensors and everything else to maintain ride height and do all these other things. All very positive, but all a lot more complicated if something goes wrong. So, or worth considering. And I mean, you see all these tractor trailers and everything that have air suspensions, and it makes really good sense for that because it can adjust at varying loads. And same thing with this. This can adjust to varying loads as well. But when you look at it all together, it's all depends on what you're willing to. Is the performance of the air suspension enough for you to justify the additional complexity and expense? And with a car like this, when you're already shelling out a lot of money, why not? Left lane is closed. A crash on exit 44.5. I'll keep an eye out for that. Here we have an amazing rear suspension that is actually the height of complexity. But it does many things here on our G90. And one of the things it does, well, first of all, it's fully independent, of course, like everything is now. But we also have rear wheel drive. So there's our drive shaft going in there, right there. Here is our strut spring combo, which is, of course, air spring. And there's our little airbag up in there. But this also has four-wheel steering. So all this mess up in here, that's part of your four-wheel steering system. So in the low speeds, when you're going, you turn the steering wheel to the right, the wheels in the back go to the left and vice versa. But at higher speeds, they all go the same direction when you turn the steering wheel. Very sophisticated, these rear wheel steering systems. But they just aid overall handling and maneuverability and everything else. As you can see, our G9 has this amazing structure here as far as our lower control arm and our lateral control arm. Everything is really, really well made, as you can see. Solid, rock solid. And even here, I love this little bit here. This is a connection between the two exhaust pipes to stop any kind of nasty noise or resonance. So that's all quiet and vibration free. So they think of everything. By the way, our suspension is in the high mode at the moment, which is a little higher than the standard mode, which is excellent because it helps you get down unimproved surfaces without pranging stuff. And you don't want to prang nothing. As you can see, we got a lot of shields and things in place here to try to protect you. But it's a decent amount of ground clearance, actually. I was surprised. And then once you get up to speed, it automatically lowers back down to the normal ride height. What else do we have? Here's our rear differential right here. And there, right there, is our drive shaft that goes up to the forward system. So it's a pretty conventional all-wheel drive system as far as its basic mechanicals, but then how it is controlled is very, very sophisticated in terms of traction assist, or I think a lot of times it's the sole traction system. It's primarily a rear-wheel drive vehicle that uses the front wheels when it needs to. So that's all secret, super secret algorithms that will not be shared with anyone like us. Here we have these little plastic shields on the bottom of this very stout lower, it looks like a forged or stamped aluminum lower control arm. And you got a upper one up here too, if you can see that. See that there right there? That's our upper control arm. And then naturally this is all part of a subframe that is attached to the unibody. And here, what else do we have here? We have, here is our anti-sway bar. And it's just a circus of stuff. There's an awful lot of things in here doing other things. And there's a cat. Hello, cat. What's that cat doing out there? He's spying on. Go away, spy. He's my friend. He's not gonna hurt anything. But here, incidentally, is our booster system that does in fact actuate our rear wheel steering. And as you can see, here's the strut that turns the wheels. And this is the thing, and it comes out on both ends here. So it can, and the little rubber boot, can you see that rubber boot up in there? And anyway, it's very, very sophisticated and complex. Here's our electricals that go into that. And here's our solenoid. So you got a whole lot going on in this rear suspension. It's not just a couple of coil springs and a straight axle. This is about as sophisticated as it gets. And the result is a really, really good ride and very, very competent handling. So amazing stuff. Your front suspension is pretty much rudimentary, although it's made of extremely good materials, about forged aluminum are. The whole use of aluminum, the main reason to do it is you get all that great strength out of the aluminum components at a much, much, much lighter weight. And if the weight is lighter, that means your unsprung weight is lower and the suspension can be a lot more responsive. So, but it costs more. I mean, this is an expensive car, and you can see every detail in here shows why it's an expensive car. There's a whole lot going on. So this is your G90, and this is a wonderful car. If you have the money to afford one, you're a lucky person, because it's a very, very sophisticated machine. Well, that was an extremely interesting experience with our 2024 G90 Genesis 3.5T E-Supercharger all-wheel drive. Very, very unique car. Base price $99,500 with a as-tested price of $101,400. This is a really, really interesting machine. It competes with the likes of BMW and Mercedes-Benz. Yeah, it really does. But it does everything in a unique Genesis sort of way. Especially, of course, the Mood Curator. So will this be the car for you if you're in the class for a vehicle like this? It just may be. I really enjoyed driving it. It has an amazing amount of room in it, a lot of technology, all the things you demand at this price. Well, more than anything else, if you're going to pay this much, you want cool stuff, and it has it. Y'all be careful out there. We'll see you next time.
Whatever the tube tells you, you dress like the tube, you eat like the tube, you raise your children like the tube, you even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.